For my whole life, I'd been surrounded by words. As the son of a storyteller, I absorbed tales, myths, and legends like a sponge. But when I visited Montana for the first time, I discovered there was magic in the silence too. I experienced the profound beauty of the untamed wilderness and a kind of solitude that whispered stories without saying a word. That's what this story is about. It's about finding narratives in nature's quiet symphony, about the stories that unfold when words are not needed. The mountains were quiet that evening, the kind of quiet that pressed against the ears and made a man feel like he was the only soul alive in the world. The wind had died down, the birds had gone silent, and an eerie stillness blanketed the towering peaks. Snow had begun to fall, light at first, but with a promise of more to come. I pulled my coat tighter and adjusted the strap of my pack. I'd been wandering for hours, my compass needle spinning uselessly after the storm had knocked me off the trail. I told myself I wasn't lost, only delayed. But the truth, heavy and undeniable, settled deeper with every mile. I'd grown up in Montana, used to cold winters and the call of the wild, but these peaks were different. They were vast, unforgiving, and with each step I felt smaller, like a trespasser in a land that belonged to something greater than man. The storm had swallowed the sun, leaving me in a world of grays and whites. I pressed on, determined to find shelter before the night claimed me. Then I saw her. At first I thought it was a trick of the snow, a figure half hidden behind the pines. But when I drew closer, my heart lurched. A girl stood there, shivering in the cold. She looked no older than 20, her dark hair tangled, her clothes thin and ragged as though she had been wandering the mountains for weeks. Her lips were pale, her eyes wide and startled, like a deer caught between fear and hope. I raised my hand slowly, my breath clouding in the air. "Hey, are you all right?" She didn't answer. She only stared at me, her lips parting as if to form words that never came. I took a cautious step closer. "I'm not gonna hurt you. My name's Ethan. Are you lost too? Still nothing?" Her chest rose and fell quickly, her hands clutching the fabric of her worn dress. She shook her head faintly, then touched her throat and lowered her gaze. I understood. She couldn't speak. My chest tightened with something more than worry. It was a strange pull, a need to protect. "It's all right," I said softly. "You don't have to talk. Just let me help." I reached into my pack and pulled out a wool blanket, stepping forward carefully and draping it over her shoulders. She flinched at first, then slowly let the warmth sink in. Her eyes flickered up to mine, uncertain but grateful. We couldn't stay in the open. Night was coming fast, and the snow was falling thicker now. I gestured for her to follow. She hesitated, but when the rain cut sharp against us, she took a step closer. It wasn't much, but it would keep out the wind. I built a small fire, my hands stiff and raw, and soon the flicker of flames filled the cave with light. The girl sat across from me, wrapped in the blanket, her knees pulled to her chest. She watched me closely, her dark eyes reflecting the fire. I tried to imagine how long she had been out there, how she had survived, why she was alone. Morning came gray and cold, but clear enough to travel. I studied the map I had, though the storm had thrown me so far off course. I could only guess at our location. I knew we had to get down the mountain before another storm hit. I pointed east toward a valley. "We need to move. I'll get you out of here." She nodded faintly, rising with the blanket still around her shoulders. Our journey down the mountainside was slow and difficult. The snow was deep, the ground uneven, and more than once I had to catch her when she stumbled. She was light as a feather in my arms, and each time I steadied her, she would glance at me with something unspoken in her eyes, a quiet trust that surprised me. Hours passed. To communicate, we used gestures. She would point, shake her head, or smile faintly when she understood. Once when we stopped to rest, she picked up a stick and began to draw in the snow. A small cabin, smoke rising from its chimney, a river winding nearby. I studied the drawing. Is that your home? She nodded. I asked, where is it? She pointed east, toward a valley I hadn't planned on crossing. It struck me then she hadn't been wandering aimlessly. She had been trying to find her way home all along. We pressed forward, following her silent directions. The mountains were merciless, but with every mile, I felt more determined. It wasn't just about saving myself anymore. It was about saving her too. On the third night, we found shelter beneath a rocky overhang. I built another fire, and she sat close, her hands stretched to the warmth. For the first time, she smiled, not wide, not bright, but soft and fragile, like something long hidden. I felt my chest tighten again, but I didn't say a word. The next morning, as we descended further, I slipped on the ice and twisted my ankle badly. Pain shot up my leg, and for a moment I thought I couldn't go on. But then she was there, kneeling beside me, her small hands steady as she bound my ankle with strips torn from her dress. She looked at me with fierce determination, as if telling me silently, "Don't give up. We'll make it together." So we did. I leaned on a branch as a crutch. She steadied me when the path grew treacherous. And finally, after days of struggle, we reached the valley. Smoke curled faintly in the distance, just as she had drawn in the snow. Her pace quickened, her eyes bright with tears. I followed, limping but smiling, as she led me to a small cabin nestled by the river. An older couple rushed out as we approached. The woman gasped, running to the girl, wrapping her in arms that trembled with relief. The man placed a hand on my shoulder, his eyes wet with gratitude. I didn't need words to understand. This was her family, and she had found her way home. The girl turned to me then, tears streaming down her cheeks. She placed her hand over her heart, then touched my arm softly, her eyes saying what her voice could not. "Thank you." I smiled, swallowing the lump in my throat. "You're welcome," I said quietly. I stayed with them that night, sharing food and warmth. The girl never left my side, as though afraid I might vanish like the mountains had swallowed me too. In the morning, when I prepared to leave, she handed me a small carved figure of a bird, pressed into my palm with care. Her eyes met mine, shining with unspoken words. I carried that little carving with me for the rest of my life. Whenever I held it, I remembered the mountains, the silence, and the girl who couldn't speak, but who had said more with her eyes than words ever could. Some bonds are not built on language. Some are built on trust, on survival, on the quiet understanding that two souls can find each other in the loneliest of places. And in the heart of those cold, unforgiving mountains, I found something I hadn't known I was searching for, proof that even in silence, you can still hear the voice of the heart. The mountains continued to stand tall, silent witnesses to the stories that unfolded within their slopes. Whether it was the whisper of the wind through the pines or the crunch of snow underfoot, the mountains had a language of their own. And as I journeyed through their embrace, I realized that sometimes the most profound stories are the ones that are never spoken aloud. They're the ones that echo in the silence, touching our hearts in ways that words simply can't. Thank you for joining me on this journey today. If you enjoyed the story, please remember to give it a thumbs up and share it with someone who appreciates the magic of storytelling. Until next time, may your own adventures be filled with wonder and your silences be filled with meaning.